pressed the live button. Now we are not live yet. Not live yet. Not live yet. Not live yet. Now we're live. Boom. The live button. Yeah, there you go. It's really interesting. I feel like the start of every live stream just basically has to be some sort of technical fuck around, which I find super interesting. Like I would assume that in the future they're going to have it so there's some sort of way to mitigate that, but as of right now it's always just like literally like you know when old people are using computers and they go like this. I feel like my face is like that, like 80% of the very start of these streams. What's up, brother?
Oh, it's so good, bro. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Is it a microphone?
Yeah, it's my little Beyonce headset. I've had to
that looks sick,
adapt
man.
to.
I might have to talk to you a little bit about that after the show.
Yeah. It's all part of the adaptability and what we're using now to teach our yoga classes, just to get a bit of a better sound quality through. So hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah.
So is it fair to say though that teaching online is a very different experience, and how are you coping with that, man? It's like changing the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it is a whole new ball game, you know, teaching or talking to a lens to begin with, but there is still this beautiful sense of connection, knowing that there are people on the other side of the line in their lounge rooms doing the same thing. And yes, it's very weird, but it took a few times to get used to it, but it is something that we're now, yeah, you can still feel that sense of community, that everyone's in it together doing a similar thing. And yeah, we're just progressing along with it, adapting to the whole new digital age that we're in now. And yeah, it's pretty much been adapt or die. So,
and out of curiosity, like when we're able, because it's probably only be like next week that Australia is open again, do you plan to do some live stream classes and some in-person classes, or what's your guys' like battle plan after this is done?
yeah, we'll definitely keep running with the online classes. Probably not as much. We're doing 3 live classes a day. We will continue to have at least one live class plus a bank of saved classes, and then have it available. Have the
3 per
studio open
day.
again.
That's a lot of freaking classes, bro. Like that's actually quite impressive.
Yeah, I'm not teaching them all myself, but yeah, it's just something that we are offering, that variety to our community, so they can still get what they need.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really very admirable as well. Well, why don't you tell people a little bit about your path? And just to make it very clear, you and your partner Kieran own one of the more popular, hip, cool places basically on the Central Coast, modern organic foods. So like it's just really, yeah, really cool that that your cafe and your yoga school and your classes and your workshops, which I've done there a couple of times, is just such a flourishing thing. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself and how that all came to be, and your spiritual path and how that all came to be?
All right. How long's the Zoom meeting?
Exactly. It's a big, tall order for sure.
All right. Well, to keep it as simple as possible, I guess I grew up on the Central Coast, typical kind of middle class family, or what's typical, but yeah, just a middle class family. And I was actually always had a question. I had to question everything. You know, I was that annoying little brother that was asking why this, why that, why, and it wasn't just to annoy my sisters. It was something to actually inquire deeper into why is the world like this? Why do you do that? Why are people doing this? And I always had that thirst for knowledge from a very young age. And it was when I was 14 with my best friend, we saw a UFO hovering over Copacabana headland. And no, I hadn't touched any drugs. This is in daylight. We could see a chrome ball hovering there. And I was brought up in a Catholic family, although I didn't really resonate with that religion. There was a few pearls of wisdom there that are worth holding on to, but the rest of it kind of contradicted itself, and I couldn't resonate with that. So when I saw this
Go to the
UFO,
UFO for 1 second, brother. I've had a few sightings myself. I would love to hear what that did, what it looked like, and also what it felt like for you to experience something otherworldly.
yeah, well, this is something that when it happened, I turned to my friend and said, "Hey, man, is it me, or can you see that chrome ball floating in the sky?" And he said, "Yeah, man, I can see it." And that was testament to say that I wasn't just seeing things. I wasn't
Yeah.
out of my mind. I wasn't on any substance or anything like that. Well, 14 years old, just been for a surf, and I didn't know what a crown chakra was back then, but it literally felt like my skull had cracked open, and boom, mind blown. Everything that I thought I knew just went out, and it allowed the possibility for uh, more things to come in. Was like, wow, we don't have this technology. There's nothing in our form of aerodynamics that can fly like that can be like that can sit and just hover with no sound, with no, uh, yeah,
I want to say
yeah,
especially back then as well, because like that, like that's about 20 years ago.
yeah, it was in the 90s. So what would have been?
Yeah,
Yeah,
25
like
years
mid
ago. Yeah.
mid 90s.
See,
Yeah.
yeah, so to me that's very interesting as well because I've had sightings a number of times and the same thing, the way they move in particular, like they're zipping around and then stopping and then zipping back and forth and then stopping, and I'm just like, what in the fuck is that? And a few times sitting with friends and we had the same thing, like even like up to like 5 years ago, experiences with friends where we were like, what the fuck, is this really happening? And tried to videotape it and it wouldn't go and all that kind of stuff. But then one thing I thought the last time, because it was 5 years ago, I was like, oh, they could be perfecting drone technology. Like, I don't want to, I'm not, I do believe in aliens. I mean, I think I am one. I go through all these things, but like, I feel like there was this moment basically of like, oh, this could be or it could not be. And at the same time, that resonates with my heart. And knowing that 25 years ago you were having the same experience also helps in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it definitely it changes you when you see something like that, and you're in a normal state of mind, or what could be considered as a normal level of consciousness, to be able to experience something like that. It definitely changes you, and I couldn't see anything the same after that. My thirst for knowledge just got a lot broader, a lot deeper, and yeah, it leads you down the path of conspiracy theories and whatever else. But you still got to keep a level head and be
Well, that's one
mindful.
thing. Well, that's one of the reasons actually I asked you to come on, is because I feel like you are a person who's into fairly out there ideas. You're describing right now, I didn't even know this. You've had fairly out there experiences, but you're also a very grounded person. I feel like you're a very you remind me of a rock. You're very strong, you're very grounded, and you're very focused. And I feel like that that combination is really, really helpful right now of being out there and also grounded, because the more out there, like literally you're talking about crown chakra, like out there, the more out there a person can be, but also still here in this body, the more service I feel like we can actually do. So like I really appreciate your reflection as well. Very quickly, I just want to say that Tammy Deron Cox is watching right now, and she just said, "Love you, brothers," and she's hearing you, Kurt. So it's nice to. I always like to read out the comments as they come in, so it's nice to know that we've got some friends here as well.
Yeah, hey Tammy, love you too, soul sister.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
had that experience when you were 14, obviously, because you mentioned that first when I talked about your spiritual path, that must have been a fairly big opener for you. Can you tell me some of the things that happened after that to kind of lead to who you are today?
Well, I did come a bit of I wouldn't say a rebel, but yeah, question authority. Uh, as you start to look deeper into this kind of stuff, you start to see through all of history, through many different cultures and tradition, how there were encounters with the fourth kind or many other kinds. And there's still so many things within this planet that we haven't even grasped yet or come close to proving through science and other things, that we don't have even the devices to test certain things. So it just opened up this can of worms, which shown that over time, there's been countless,
Mhm.
if not sightings and communications and interventions with higher beings. So
Mhm.
this led me down the path of just like fuck authority. I was a bit of a punk rocker back in the early days, and I was all into the angst and anti-government type of thing, but not just for the scene, so to speak. It was like these guys, you know, they're onto something here. It's not just something to sing about for the sake of it. It's like these guys are getting a point across, and it's still relevant to this day. Very, very relevant. 30 years later, we're still having the same conversations. There's still the same angst against similar parts of authority that just aren't for the greatest good. So that's what led me, I guess, to be a bit of a party boy in that same sense, because I was like, oh fuck it, I can just enjoy my life. I'm not gonna get too caught up. And where my best friend I saw the UFO with, he ended up with psychosis, which was
Man. Mm. Yeah,
heartbreaking to.
that's the thing that happens, man. It is a real thing that happens, especially when our mind stretches so far and we don't have that ground, and it just goes further and further, and boom, it's like, oh my fuck, there's too much info and not enough ground, and it's really, really possible for that to happen. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Did your mate end up recovering in some sense?
To a degree, yes. The medication that he was on, yeah, kind of, you can't unscramble an egg, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Once that sort of happens, then you just got to do your best to deal with it. We're still in contact. We still, still get along, and it's just funny how you can go either way. You can go too far down that path, but that can also be related to, you know, all kinds of chemical imbalancement. It can
Sure.
be linked to a certain hereditary line and things like that. So
Funny enough,
at
man,
the end of the day,
my own personal experience is that when I started teaching, I taught very wildly. Like I was like, man, we're gonna fire off Kundalini together. Like we're gonna make like it was like very intense and very wild. And actually, a couple of people ended up with mental illness through that process as well. So it was kind of like taking
yeah,
like
yeah,
really intense psychedelics and actually stretching way too far and then having mental illness. And that's when I had to learn how to be a more grounded, more integrated teacher, because I was essentially taking people out of their bodies, bringing them into the cosmos, and then being like, all right, see ya. And like
yeah,
learning that every procedure of up has to have a procedure of down, making sure that the teachings have integrity and don't take us away from the material world too much. You know, obviously a little bit is good in order to see from different perspectives, but then getting people back onto the ground. So like that's that subject of mental illness and how easy it is to happen with spiritual experiences with psychedelics, and then as you said with preconditions, that's a real deal. It's a real thing.
yeah. It's something to be mindful of always. I know a lot of people that come through, and yeah, they want to blow their lids off. Some of them have or are actually experiencing Kundalini rising and things like that, and don't have the tools and techniques to help ground or to come back in line or just bring it back to the third dimension, because they got caught up in the spiritual ego takes over, and something that it happens a lot to people, and it's a continuous thing. Once the lid gets blown off, that's not the end of it. It's just really the beginning of something else. So
And look, that I think post-enlightenment teachings and teachers are very, very important right now more than ever. Almost everything in the past was to achieve some sort of enlightenment, to leave the body, to achieve no mind, which is really cool because people were so stuck in the third dimension, so stuck in their bodies, so stuck in their minds. But we don't have now you've experienced an open sense of presence. We don't have anything to then continue to sharpen and refine that field. And I think that like post-enlightenment teachers, I don't mean enlightenment like a permanent state, but having moments of a satori, moments of enlightenment where you experience that, then now we have to have teachers as to what to do next, or how to ground that, and how to keep our shit together to still be in the world but not of it, right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. So
So I actually want to continue with your story. I just want to say that, do you know Chloe Rebelato? Look,
um,
maybe you do, maybe you
not
don't,
too
but
sure.
she's the absolute shit. super good friend. She just said, your teachings have integrity. I love how you're mindful of integration and grounding. So again, just a confirmation of what we were just talking about, just how if we have, the further out we go, the more rooted we need to be, or just like a tree will fall over, right? But you were telling a story that involved your friend from before, and you were a party boy, and you were fucking the system, and you were doing all the fun. And you were mentioning, you said, and that same friend, and that's how that all came up with mental illness. So where were you at in that story?
Okay, so yeah, we partied. This is before all of that stuff unfolded, but I was one of those guys that, go hard or go home. And, what's the point? If we're going to do it, let's get really fucked up. So it was when I was 18, actually, yeah, partied a little too hard. Didn't OD. It was actually total body exhaustion. My body shut down at a rave at about 6 a.m. in the morning, and my body died. Heart stopped. I had a out of body experience. I was hovering over a crowd of people, and it was like I was the thoughts in people's heads going, is he okay? Is he okay? Is he okay? I'm going, what's going on here? And then got sucked back into the body, looked up, and there was the paramedics kicking me back into gear. And yeah, at 18, I was like, shit, is this what, my body was gone, my brain was gone, but the being was still there, that soul element, which I didn't learn about the Atman until, pretty much a decade later. But this is when all of that yogic philosophy started to come in. I was like, oh, this all starts to make sense to me now. So that was another part of my spiritual journey that I cannot deny through my own direct experience, to have that near death experience, but also the outer body experience on a level that, I wasn't, if anything, I was the most toxic I'd probably been in my life. To have one of those experiences that most people would not have until they actually do kick the bucket, get to that part of their experience.
And who knows why things actually happen. It's hard to settle in on a solid reason, but at the same time, pretty unique and pretty cool that you took it so far that you had to have a near-death experience in order to wake up a little, right? Like, it seems like your soul, whatever the fuck you want to call it, your life path involves that grace. Like, that's a part of your life path, is that grace to be able to experience pretty trippy shit and then also be safe and come back, right?
Yeah, totally. It took time to come back to the third dimension and be aware of what, some of the scriptures or some of the oldest teachings and the mystics and the monks and the gurus are talking about, the different aspects of ourselves, which, you cannot grasp, you cannot really conceptualize it. It's another experiential thing. And to be able to explain that to people when you're 18 and you haven't had these teachings, or none of those people are spiritual themselves, then yeah, you're perceived as being a bit out there, a bit crazy, a bit wild, that type of thing, which, yeah, to a degree, yes, of course. And that led me just to sort of work my way back into the system, where I did end up getting a trade working on electrical power lines, and I end up living the Australian dream or the American dream. I went and bought a house, and everyone was so proud. Look at Kirt, he's in his mid-20s, he's got a trade, well-paying government job, bought his own house, and I was absolutely miserable, so depressed to the point of suicide. I'd always toyed around with the idea because, yeah, from a young age, I'm like, what is this all about? It's all a delusion or illusion, and everyone's just got no idea what's actually happening here. So when I got to that point in my mid-20s and I was sitting in this house that I didn't want to be in, I was a slave to the banking system. And the day that I was going to kill myself, I learned how to tie a noose. I had the rope there ready to go. And I thought, before I do this, I'm going to meditate, just going to calm down and I'm going to do it. And in that moment, I actually did an R meditation. It was a Manifesting Through Meditation CD by Wayne Dyer, and talking about the significance of the sound R and how the sound of the creator has that sound R. And so it was similar to an Om meditation, but started kicking into these R's, and would have been about 8 R's in. Don't know the exact number, but bang, all form gave way. There was not a single thing to grasp or to conceptualize. It was being nothing but everything at the same time. And that was my experience of, I guess, the unified field of consciousness, where everything emanates from that pure state. And it was only a matter of time before, from that space, little energy started to rise up through my spine to the point where it increased on a level beyond comprehension. It was like 1,000,000 stars. The energy of 1,000,000 stars was flowing through me. And to come out of that and to come back to some form of reality, and to tell people once again that hadn't done any work, that was very much in the third dimension, all tradies, all people that, yeah, the highlight of their life was schooners at the end of the day, which was mine at the time, to come out of this experience and be able to see things on a level that couldn't really tell people, because they wouldn't be able to understand how I could see somebody across the road and tell that they had stomach cancer just by looking directly at them. That was too much for me to handle at that time. So I ended up numbing down that energetic level I was at with, yes, more alcohol, more drugs, just to fit back into the group I was in, even though I tried so desperately just to fit in, even though I was never going to. It was only a matter of time before I started to break away and became that loner, became just the observer, not being caught up in any social structure or anyone else's business that I tried to for so long. And this is where I left my job, left the well-paying job. I sold the house, telling my dad, who very much in that system of, you work, you pay off your house, it takes 30 years, you retire, you get your gold watch, buy a caravan and travel around Australia. I said, yeah, you can do that, but that's not my dream. That's your dream. Or it's not actually your dream. It's actually part of the collective. So if you choose to do that, good for you, but that's not for me. And that was a very hard thing to have to tell my dad. I'm more leaning towards Buddhism, knowing that nothing lasts and we're not here forever. And we've got to make the most of it, not being trapped in some ideology. Even, you can say Buddhism is some form of ideology, and I didn't even get caught up in that. I took what I needed, took the teachings, and left the rest. So it was when I abandoned all of that, took my redundancy money, traveled overseas, and said to Karen, my wife, and I said, when we get back, we got to start this business. And
so you've been together, you were together that long, you and Kieran, through all of this?
Well, this happened, no, she came along later, but once I sold the property, I was living in Sydney, and I was on the verge at selling the property. I had mates that were renting it out, and I was holding on to it just purely for my dad's sake, to say, all right, I've still got the property, even though I don't want to live in it, making money on it. But it got to the point where I'm like, I don't even want this attachment. It's just another thing that's tugging at me. So I kind of cleared the slate, had a bit of money, and went traveling. And when we got back from our overseas travels, I think we had about $13 in all sorts of currency. Had to move back in with my mum and dad, just going, and dad said to me, what the fuck are you going to do now? I said, all right, just leave it with me and we'll see what happens. Having my awareness that yes, I am connected to this source of energy, which is more powerful than a million suns, I'm not worried. I know that, yeah, things will just start to unfold in a way that if we do stay true to what we're doing, if we have a little, just an ounce of faith that what we're doing is being supported, then it will. And the things start to unravel where I did a business course, and Modern Organic was originally starting off as just an organic clothing company. And this is something that, you know, we will still expand somewhere down the track, because something like not just agriculture, but our clothing, where we get this from, that big part of agriculture is a major polluter on the planet. And to start to shine awareness to people on that, everyone's wearing clothes, but most people don't have any fucking idea where those threads come from, or how they're produced, how they're dyed, how they're printed, all these kind of things. So I was hopefully going to bring some awareness through to that. And it was halfway through this business course that I started crunching some numbers. And at that stage of my life, I was teaching yoga, and on a daily basis telling people to dream big, think big, go big, you know. And I was starting off this little business. I was like, hang on a second, let's just go big, go all in. Yoga cafe, that was the dream, to have me have a studio and Kieran to run a cafe, because that's her background in hospitality. So one thing led to another, and I started to change the business plan. And yeah, once I got that together, finished the business course, I went to Dad and I said, oh, we go guarantor for this business idea I have. And he said, fuck no. Straight up. Back in the day when I had the trade, I had the, you know, the well-paying job, he went, yeah, no worries, I'm happy to support you. But he's like, now that you don't have a job, now that you know, he didn't know I had what ideas that I had, but I was like, all right, here's my business plan. I'll leave it with you and Mum. Have a look at it. And yeah, he did. 2 hours later, he called back and said, yeah, me and your mum are on board.
Because he did it, yeah. Because he actually presented it in its full form. I really appreciate that sturdiness, that strength, that planning, that structure that you were able to present to a man who needed that in order to come to your help, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And from the start, he was like, don't fuck this up. And there's an immense amount of fear coming from him. And I said, no, don't even come in with, or at me with that energy, for starters, and don't even bring that into what we're creating here, because we know that, yes, you're fundamental to this creation, because without it, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But don't fear, just have faith. And that's all I asked from him. And he took that on board. I really had to sit down with him and say, I'm on this whole new way, like, mentality and frame of mind, to just stay true to the vision. This is what we're doing, and we don't know how it's going to happen or what we're going to do, because it's changed so much over the years, and we've had to adapt. We've had to fine tune things in a way that it is working in the way it is now. And even the last few months, we've had to flip everything again on its head, reinvent the wheel. It's already been invented, but we're doing it in our way, and it's working. And we're happy, we're blessed that we were able to have a business where we could recreate it. We can adapt, whereas there's so many others out there that just had to lock the doors and say, see you later, we're done. And so I'm very, very grateful that we are in the space to do what we do and continue to offer some form of service.
Yeah, well, here's the cool thing, man. You just gave me a very beautiful and chronological story, and I really appreciate that, about your growth path and about your business and about where you're at now. I kind of wanted to go back into a couple of the things that you said. First of all, and now these are teachings that I know very, very well, but let's imagine people who are watching this are curious. You mentioned the word Atman. You mentioned form falling away. You mentioned the Kundalini rising. These are three subjects that mean a lot to me. I was wondering if you could give a little talk about that and about what those things mean to you.
All right. Well, the detachment from form came from surrender. That's ultimate surrender, and this is not being passive. As you know, it's not about being passive. There is always balance. There's that action. The fact that I chose to sit in a meditation, that's taking some form of action. But there becomes a time where you got to let go of all of the teachings, let go of all of the processes, all of the what got you there. And it's that letting go completely is when I was dropped into that space. And to be in that space of complete awe and amazement, but in the other sense, not knowing. But
Now, what you just said as well, that a lot of times there are certain teachings, for example, philosophies of yoga, philosophies in the New Age, conspiracy theories that have truth to them. Like this is the thing, is they have truth. But at some point, for you to truly experience God, formlessness, whichever words you want to use, Atman, you got to let go of even those, right? And I remember I was at a tantric school once, and they said that every teaching that we have is like a raft, and it gets us over a river. But after you're over the river, you don't want to just carry like the heaviest motherfucking raft all the way through the forest with you, right? Because you'd be dragging it along. So using these teachings to experience something deeper, to the core of the philosophy, what it's actually moving you towards. But once you're in that state of openness or connected to source, or as you said, a touch, an experience of formlessness, we can actually drop the teachings that led us to that as well in order to then move forward with this new experience. And that's pretty big. It's pretty hot shit, man.
yeah, it's beautiful. And I still believe religions have a time and place, but I'm not religious at all. Even the word spirituality, that's been thrown around so much that it's lost its essence. And I think I heard you mentioning the other day about, claiming to be woke and all that type of thing. It's, it's only a certain degree or level of awareness, whatever you're woke to. And some people are aware of a lot of things, other people not so much. And
I think what I was trying to say with that is that to be woke to something is still being woke to something, but to be awakened is to be not something at all, to awaken into the no thing. And that just to be careful, I'm nervous culturally of the carefulness of that language, because if we say I'm awakened to government corruption, for example, that's important. There's definitely government corruption, and I don't really know anybody who's like, the government is always right. Like that's kind of off the table at this point. But what happens is when we realize there's government corruption, for example, or when we awaken to social justice issues, the feeling of I have arrived. Now I am awakened. Now I am woke, and I can just sit right here, and this is the final spot. But the nervousness or the carefulness there is that to awaken again on a spiritual level, as you know, with these deep traditions, is to move out of form entirely. So to be awoken to something in form is super important. That upgrade in awareness is amazing, but that's not the same thing as to be awakened, as in these spiritual traditions. I just want to make sure that as society goes forward, we don't conflate those two things, because they are very different things in their essence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the difference between just pure awareness or to that point of the awakening of your own stuff, awakening from the dream, from all of the illusion, and noticing, that if you get caught up in the third dimension of all the politics of the moment, all of the drama, the conspiracy theories, it just brings you back to a level that, if anything, it is at a lower consciousness. This is where the system is at the moment. The whole, on a collective level, generally speaking, yes, there is this frequency, there is this resonance there, and it's very much around fear at the moment, in the way that they're I'm not going to go too far down the path of the conspiracy theory, but as they say, they're not going to let a good crisis go to waste. And there's certain parties or things at play at the moment that are using this to manipulate or to change things in a way that we can only hope for the best.
Mm-hmm.
There's
And to be woke to that and then to take action is very, very important. So none of this is to disregard that. It's just not to conflate those two different things. That's all.
yeah. So the more people that can become aware of what's happening in this third dimension, yes, it's not about being completely neutral that we don't do anything. There's going to be a point where we're going to have to take a stand, that we're going to have to jump off the fence sooner or later and go, oh, hang on a second, no, this is for the greatest good, and this isn't. We can start to see what we stand for, what we need to do as a collective to use this crisis to our benefit too. To be able, it's not about utopia. Utopia is an illusion, because what's a utopia to me would be complete hell to someone else. So if there is some form of, I think I mentioned it to you the other day, some form of global agreements where there's certain obvious rules to live by, which you can see in a lot of different cultures and traditions, are pretty much straightforward. You don't go harming people, you don't go killing things, or you try and be as honest as you can. Don't go stealing things, whatever it is. They're just moral ethics that anyone from a normal level of consciousness can agree with. So when it comes to all the other intricate things, then yes, it depends on your geography, on your economy, and everything else will start to play out from that level. But hopefully we can start to rebuild this in a way that we can come to a global agreement on how everyone can live to better themselves to start.
Freedom and safety. I've been thinking about this a lot. Freedom and safety have to be the two pillars, because what happens is a lot of times in safety we lose our freedom, and a lot of times in our freedom we bowl over safety, because we're like, as you know from your past, and me too, you go fucking nuts. So understanding that the combination of both freedom and safety, so sovereignty and safety, those two things, I think if we can find some way to get both of them at the same time, we'll be absolute superstars. Because communism and socialistic ideas are about safety, and right-wing intense stuff is about independence and sovereignty, and just some way to rectify that duality so we can get both. We could have freedom and safety, we would be happy people. True freedom, meaning that we make our own choices. The only thing you can't do is hurt other people. It's like literally that's all. If you want to take 5 friends, go out into the woods, get completely naked, hang by your toes, and masturbate together, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you're not make sure that all 5 of your friends are all really in on it, right? Like, this is the whole thing. So it's all about freedom and safety. But it's not that people have to exercise their freedom in that crazy way, but it's just knowing that you can create something psychologically so we're able to actually be free. And safety is also of utmost importance. And as long as we live in a world where safety is threatened, then we're not able to climb that ladder of Maslow's hierarchy, right? So we just, like, something about those two things have to exist at once. And I don't think that we've ever seen a system, a humanity, anything that's ever had both of those things. We have safety right now, but we don't really have freedom. So we have to find a way to have both.
Yeah, there's always to a degree the illusion of safety that we have, because
yes.
As you can see, just something that's microscopic can take lives. Where before this happened, people were afraid of the reptilian species and the alien invasion, and if that's as far as some people think, other people were just more afraid of just how they are in life. What are the things that they're doing? The money aspect, it's a big thing that people are trapped in down, whether you look at it from a chakras perspective or you just look at it from a base level third dimension thing. People are stuck in fear, and it's been a continuous manipulation of things over time to the whole way that the system is set up is very much fear-based. That if you're not living the Australian or the American dream or the Western dream, then your life's you're a waste, or you're not you're pretty much not useful in this day and age, where things have changed so much in the last few months, whether people consider themselves to be essential or non-essential, where everyone has a right to be as they are, to do whatever they want to do and to enjoy it. And not be not be discriminated against for your choices, or to be put in a box because you're doing things against other people's beliefs. Yes, we do have to be, of course, use our own discrimination to make sure that we're not causing any harm, that we can still have the right to do what we want to do, and from that sovereign freedom perspective, and be safe to do so.
That's it. Yeah, that's. I wish that we could. I wish that we could make that the platform for the world. But then again, if you and I came up with something really cool and we're like, we're going to implement this in the whole world, then that's going to trigger people as well. We need to find a way to collectively work together to create these these understandings. I wanted to read out some comments very early on. I'm so sorry, Kate, for not reading this earlier. We were on the flow. It said Trump has released images of UFOs. People are saying that it's to distract people from what's really going on. Those UFO postings were released, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, and they were just re-released right now. So that's actually not new information. I'm not sure what to think, because a lot of the studying I've done is that the government might create a false, what do you call it, revelation of aliens as well. So we also have to be super careful that if all of a sudden aliens come and they're like, by the way, you all need to eat our Monsanto products. So we have to be like, whoa, wait a second here. Like, I don't think you're not a real alien. So we're going to have to be careful as those things come out too. And at the same time, again, you've had genuine sighting and connection experiences, as have I as well. So it's like, for me, when something like that comes out in the media, you have to be careful, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting to think that people would open their minds to what is potential. And even, let's picture, if it is a false event, if aliens are really here with us, which I think they are as well, that would be their perfect time to come and be like, hey, actually, don't listen to those motherfuckers. This is, we're here to actually express it. So those are all fantasies. We don't know what's actually going to happen, but I would love some form of what do they call it? Not revelation, exposure.
Alien intervention.
Yeah, just it'd be nice if that happened, and if it happened in a way that didn't create further division, but actually created some sense of unity. That'd be pretty cool. Do you have any other thoughts on that when, again, Trump had released those images?
I think a friend put something up, and they were pretty poor footage, and I just commented, yeah, there's a lot more footage from where that comes from, because this has been long going for as long as they're being able to document it. And one of my favorite TV shows at the moment is Project Blue Book. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's on SBS1. But they're going over the guy that the Air Force hired back in the 1940s and 50s to study all of these sightings, all of the things that were happening. And it states at the start of the show, all of these events are based on all of these stories are based on true events. And even Kieran had to pause halfway through an episode, grab hold of me and say, is this shit for real? Like, I'm saying, yeah, there's been alien intervention, or whether you look at it as alien or just that they're another form of us, more advanced. I'm not even going to go down that path. But yes, there's been things that they have been aware of for a very long time. Even the stories which they brought up in this show of how they stopped World War III from happening. They had
before,
so there's no saying now that if they're still around, which, if they've been around for as long as they say they have, there's cave paintings with illuminated beings and starcrafts and all these things. So if they're still around, there's some form of intervention they would have to play, Whether they're malevolent or benevolent is another discussion.
Here's something that I keep fairly personal, but a lot of my original awakening experiences was feeling like an alien myself, and even having aspects of my alien selves walk into the body that was Josh. Like those were pretty very real experiences for me when they were happening about 10 years ago, or maybe even more now, man, like 13 years ago. And so in that particular story, I try to always keep in mind that this was a story that was part of my evolution, but it might not be fully true. But as a part of that story, the idea is that we as aliens have come here so many times, as you said, over time, and tried to help, but often kind of fuck things up because all attempts basically still involve our own egos as even evolved creatures, but then also the egos of humanity and how easy it is for those things to all turn. So in this time, there would be, the theory is that there's plenty of people incarnated on this planet right now that have an alien lineage, or maybe everyone does actually, if you even look at it in DNA structure. Um, and that right now is a weird, cool opportunity to start to heal that karma, heal that confusion, and heal that pain, actually, that was originally meant to be help, or even if it wasn't meant to be help, it was meant to be interesting. And now we're kind of, the culmination of that interesting project is here right now on Earth, and this is what we're kind of all up to, whether it's external aliens that are working with us or incarnated aliens that are working from within the culture. So I don't know. That's what some pretty profound things that happened when I was a kid, though.
Yeah, it's something that's all plausible at the end of the day when we live in such an expansive universe, or even our solar system, or solar systems, limited, but the Milky Way, to 200 billion stars, and to think that there may be a sister planet that may be a million years older than us, that they have a million years more of technology, more advanced than us, then yeah, you can say, well,
Especially because we keep on finding them ourselves too. Like keep on finding these planets that we're like, I think so. It just makes so much sense that chain would get passed on. Like we may be in that position as humans right now that there's one more advanced, but we're also, as we space travel, discovering ones that are a little less advanced, and we're just, the fucking cycle goes on, right? Like we'll see that planet, forget about it, or recognize that with free will laws we should just leave it alone, then come back and go, oh fuck, they've created this really cool thing, but they're all killing each other, and like, oh, maybe we'll try and help, and then oh shit, all of our help just backfired again, and then we retreat. But this whole cycle of interplanetary healing and work and evolution and stuff is like, it's probably bigger than this Earth is not the end of that cycle, like it's just like a part along the way.
Yeah, I used to have this joke. Well, actually, it's probably an underlying belief that this whole thing, the whole planet that we're on, could just, where it's like an alien ant farm, and it could be equivalent to a year 9 extraterrestrial being going, I've got this science project, I'm going to put a couple of microbiomes here on this planet and just see what happens over time. And he'd probably get like a B- once his teacher looks at it and goes, oh, look at these humans and what they've done. Yeah, I'll give that a B-. So
even funnier is the idea that it's a project that's becoming sentient of itself too. So imagine like if you did make a project like that, and then they actually started to become like awakened, or they started to connect to their cosmic selves, and like, it's pretty cool. That's a pretty grand, fun experiment.
yeah. When that happens, then yeah, he'll get the A. He'll get the A+, and, or she. So it's just been something
they, I
that,
believe, is probably more closely, the androgyny probably is makes more sense at those higher levels.
yeah. I just love how we're able to have open conversations like this, where we still have freedom of speech. And for those out there that maybe this contradicts or makes you feel uncomfortable, then it's time to become more aware. You don't have to be awoke or completely enlightened, but just go, all right, well, there's possibilities here, there's things here that are happening that are beyond what they're showing in the media. But there's lots of things that are happening behind closed doors, and we can just hope that there is some intervention there that is supporting us in a way that you can see how the planet is benefiting from the commotion. Everyone's inside there. There's not as much pollution. The war machine has definitely slowed down in a way that the planet has had a moment to breathe. And I love to think, what if politicians were just completely honest? There's absolute, utter disclosure. They might just come out and say, all right, humans, settle the fuck down, just go inside, close the doors, connect with your family, get out of that capitalist mindset of greed and lust for more, and just take a moment. But in the other hand, this place is getting overpopulated, so we're going to have to sort that out too. But if they're going to be, they'll never be that honest. Let's be honest. And hopefully, yes, we dream of a place where we do have more of actual leaders that are running the place, someone that has awareness of environmental science, of even political science, to show what's happening here is not good.
I think it's inevitable. I actually think that that particular thing of it being one of those barbaric things that we look back at like 50 years from now, we're like, can you believe that the people used to just dump like toxic shit in the ocean? Like everyone would be like, what? Like, you're fucking kidding me. They used to do that. Like, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen within the next 20 to 30, 50 years. And we'll see. I have to actually wrap this up, bro. I actually, as soon as we started, I got a reminder in my phone that was like, at noon, I've got a coaching session. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Because truthfully, I feel like this could go on for longer. Like, I feel like we just scratched the surface. So if you feel keen for it, perhaps we can do it again.
Yeah, we could do a round two. I'm happy to hang out and chat anytime.
Cool, man. Is there anything in closing that you'd like to say?
Just mainly, yeah, it's one thing I'm trying to be telling people, just to be as aware as possible, not get trapped in the way that you want the world to be, or the way that you expect it to be, or even assuming certain politics or things to evolve in a way that we want it to. We have to be vigilant. And yeah, it's good to be on the fence, just having a look. And it's not about being closed and definitely restricted in the way that you are able to discern or just to experience what is truly happening at the moment. So that's the biggest thing. I want people to be more open and not stuck and trapped in fear.
Well, that sounds like an amazing way to end this, brother. Lots of love. Thank you to everybody who was watching. We just had a couple of messages. One person, a good friend Jody, said beautiful to all this. Michelle Powell said love listening to both of you. I believe you know her as well. And Chloe said that she appreciates the container that we've made. So again, thank you so much for everybody who's watching. Kate made a laugh face probably at all the alien stuff. And Paul, I didn't notice you were watching, said disclosure. So he's on that train around with alien disclosure as well. Thank you all for being here. I have to run. Paul just said beautiful conversation to listen to. Again, thanks for coming, brother. I love you, Kirt, and we'll do this again soon, okay?
Love you too, brother.
Stick around for just 1 second.